Well, the Red Sox over the weekend, according to reports, adding to their front office staff. 20 years ago today, the Red Sox were celebrating winning Game 7 on October 20th, the night before, against the Yankees in the American League Championship Series. And at this point, 20 years ago today, the Red Sox were getting ready for the 2004 World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals. We're going to discuss those topics and more with Ian Browne, who covers the Red Sox for MLB.com, with our latest edition of Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And with that, we do welcome you in. I'm Steve Lennox, and I'm going to be filling in for our regular Locked On Red Sox host, Gabby Hurlbut. I host the Locked On Red Sox postcast during the regular season. We had great success with it this past season. Looking forward to getting it underway again in 2025. So Gabby Hurlbut, the normal host of Locked On Red Sox. Gabby Hurlbut, the former Gabby Hurlbut. We now recognize Gabby as Gabby Maljanian. I got it. Congratulations to Gabby. For those of you who don't know, Gabby got married, now former fiance, now husband, David, and we wish Gabby and David all the best, and we send our best wishes to them. And she's going to take a couple of weeks off from hosting Locked On Red Sox with the podcast and also on the Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel as well. Again, I've hosted Locked On Red Sox postcast, getting ready to get the Locked On Celtics postcast underway with the Celtics opening up the regular season against the Knicks at home in Boston on Tuesday night. Locked On Red Sox postcast, Locked On Patriots postcast, Locked On Celtics postcast, all part of the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube channel. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We've gotten the okay. We've gotten the pat on the back. We've gotten the thumbs up. We're going to be looking for even more audience participation with you. We want to hear from you, our everydayers, our first-timers. Join the conversation. Watching live on the Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel, hit the comment button. Join the Sox conversation. You can also follow me on X or hit me up on the X as well, at Lennox on Baseball, with questions, comments, or concerns. Again, Ian Browne, MLB.com writer who covers the Red Sox, is going to join us in just a few minutes. As I mentioned in the open, rather awkwardly, you could say, on this day, October 21, 2004, Red Sox were celebrating winning Game 7 of the American League Championship Series over the New York Yankees, and just 2 days away from starting the 2004 World Series in Boston against the Red Sox. Of course, we know what happened. The Red Sox won the first two at Fenway, won the next two, and won it in a sweep over the St. Louis Cardinals to break the curse. 86 years, right? So again, participation, we'd love to have you on board with us. Locked On YouTube or Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel, you can join the conversation with us. You have memories from 2004? Share them with us, especially on this day, the day after the improbable comeback, the comeback that nobody thought the Red Sox could hit, down 3-0 in the American League Championship Series against the New York Yankees. Timing for me sometimes is everything. So a few weeks back, live in Connecticut, just outside of New Haven, and our town has a yearly used book sale. So I picked up Terry Francona's book that he wrote after his Red Sox years with Dan Shaughnessy. And it's terrific. I'm about 150 pages in. We've gone through Terry Francona, early career, playing career, the injuries that he had as a player, all those different things, and all the way through the 2004 World Series, celebrating the 2004 World Series title, all the different things he's had. So after I got that book for a couple of bucks at the local library used book sale just a few weeks back, a couple of days later, Terry Francona is announced as the new manager of the Cincinnati Reds. So again, timing is everything. Then I got the opportunity to fill in for a couple of weeks on 10 shows for Gabby with Locked On Red Sox here on the Locked On Red Sox and the Locked On Podcast Network. But timing is just a little bit of everything going on along the way. So the Red Sox are in the news. We do have a couple of things. Again, if you have memories of 2004, if you have memories of this day, October 21, 1975, we'll get into a little Red Sox history coming up a bit later on in our third segment after we chat with Ian Browne of MLB.com. But a couple of notes to pass along here. Yes, the Red Sox have already added on. or it looks like they're adding on. It was reported over the weekend by Chris Cotillo and Sean McAdam of Mass Live and MassLive.com. The Red Sox are taking an executive from the Tampa Bay Rays organization, Taylor Smith, was the director of predictive modeling. He's going to be hired by the Red Sox organization, not official yet, but he's coming to the Red Sox from the Rays organization, and he's reportedly going to join the Red Sox in an assistant general manager position. So that's an interesting one for the Red Sox. Also of note, and we're going to try to have a different guest every day. So we're going to hit on prospects. We're going to hit on the guys that are in the Red Sox minor league system that are out in Arizona participating in the Arizona Fall League. Got this one from this morning, MLB.com. Joe Trezza putting one of the Red Sox minor league players playing for Mesa out in the Arizona Fall League. Catcher Brooks Brannon, ranked right now number 27 in the Red Sox minor league system for prospects, that according to MLBpipeline.com. He's out there in the Arizona Fall League, and Joe Trezza of MLB.com tipping the cap or acknowledging the last week 2 of the Arizona Fall League for Brooks Brannon. Brannon, 20 years old, catcher, 7 for 12 this past week, and scored 4 runs, had a home run. He's got terrific power, had that in high school when he was drafted a few years ago, 9th round out of the state of North Carolina by the Red Sox, that in the 2022 draft. A couple of RBIs, couple of walks, and doing a little bit of everything right now in the Arizona Fall League. Next week, we're going to talk with Jim Callis, likely of Baseball America. Never supposed to preview your guests down the road, but that's what we're going to do. Brannon, he's dealt with a couple of injuries. Looked this up this morning through MLBpipeline.com and a couple of other online websites as well. He's dealt with some injuries since signing with the Red Sox. 62 games this year, complex league down in Florida. Also played with Salem at the low A level. So at 20 years old, still very much on the radar as a prospect. And coming along in the Red Sox system, maybe he starts in Salem to start 2025. Looking at it, mentioned the injuries over the last couple of years for Brannon. He needs to put a full season together for 2025. I would think that would be one of the main goals for Brooks Brannon. A guy, again, with good pop, 20 years old, high school draft pick. You don't have to rush him right now. But you would think maybe low A, high A next year, or even maybe starts at high A, Greenville, and then perhaps during the season is able to move up. He may determine a lot more of that than what the Red Sox, they may be aggressive with him, but it might be determined on what he's doing in 2025. Again, just 20 years old, Brooks Brannon, recognized by MLB.com and Joe Trezza as one of the top performers in week 2 of the Arizona Fall League. I will say this from time to time. It's a bucket list item. I would love to go out to Arizona. Affordability right now would be an issue for me. I'd love to get to Arizona for a week for Arizona Fall League play and see the different teams, see the prospects. I always say that about the USA Baseball Complex in Cary, North Carolina. You can see future big leaguers at 16, 17, 13, 14 years old down in Cary, North Carolina, spring, summer, and into the early fall as live. So mentioned already the fact that Taylor Smith looks like he's going to join the Red Sox organization here. That'll probably be official in the next couple of days. Again, Steve Lennox in for Gabby Hurlbut on the Locked On Red Sox podcast. Again, Gabby married this past weekend. We offer congratulations once again to Gabby and David. Locked On Red Sox presented by Prize Picks. Yes, indeed. Prize Picks, sponsor of the Locked On Red Sox podcast feed. Prize Picks, the best place to get real money, sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on the sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and does not return, Prize Picks is able to keep your lineup live. Sign up today. Get a $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus from Prize Picks. It is guaranteed. Again, download the app today. Use code LockedOnMLB.com to win or to get $50 instantly with the bonus after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, privileged to welcome in Ian Browne. He covers the Red Sox for MLB.com. And Ian, appreciate taking a couple of minutes with us. Sorry, I was tardy getting you in here. But let me start off by asking you this. I worked for MLB Advanced Media in New York years ago now, worked under Jim Jenks. And this is a badge of honor, I think. But are you one of the longest tenured .com writers covering a team present day?
Yeah, I mean, I've been there since 2002, so I've been there almost since the beginning, and it's been a ride, that's for sure. A lot of ups and downs with the Red Sox, but never a dull moment.
So as the Red Sox go up and down, you go up and down on occasion as well. Want to start with the anniversary 20 years ago today. It was the night before the Red Sox clinched the ALCS against the Yankees. What was October 21, 2004 like for you as you're going back to Boston now to cover the World Series against the Cardinals?
Honestly, like, it hadn't really sunk in. I was just pretty bleary-eyed at that point because, I mean, you have to remember these games 3 through 7 were played in a 5-day span without a day off because there was a rain out on what was supposed to be game 3. So we have like a 4 hour and 15-minute game in game 3, then 5 hours and 2 minutes in game 4, 5 hours and 49 minutes in game 5. And I think game 6 was somewhere close to 4 hours. And then game 7 was like 3.5 hours. So we were just going on very little sleep and just like kind of amazed at what you just saw. I mean, it was a miracle. So, I mean, I'm taking the Amtrak back to Boston. I remember we had some sort of now there was a 2-day gap between the end of game 7 and the big media day at Fenway Park, which is going to be Friday. So we did go to Fenway on Thursday. I went straight from the Amtrak to Fenway for some sort of press conference, which is kind of local media. And it was just kind of wild that they had made it to that point after they were, down 3-0 in the series, and just everything that happened between the Red Sox and the Yankees, and then everything that happened in that series to get to that point. It was, the craziest 5 days streak in my career.
I opened up Locked On Red Sox here today by talking about timing sometimes is everything. And a few weeks ago, used book sale in my town just outside of New Haven, Connecticut, picked up Terry Francona's book with Dan Shaughnessy. And it's interesting of just, even though they were scampering and had that time, 2004, they really, they sort of had their pitching set up early on. 2005, it was a lot different for Francona. He touched on that. And I'm sort of at the end of the 2005 season when they lost to the eventual champion White Sox. But, with the pitching, everybody's on fumes. But with the pitching the way it's set up in 2004, and, as you were kind of previewing Sox, Cardinals for the World Series, what were the things that sort of, you were saying, okay, Red Sox are the favorite here?
Yeah, I mean, both teams, you have to remember, were coming off a 7-game series.
Yep.
Cardinals went 7 against Houston, but the Red Sox, just what they did there to come back from 3-0 to beat the Yankees. Once you do that, you almost feel invincible. And Cardinals had one key guy out. I think it was Carpenter. Chris Carpenter was out for them, and he was the one real hard thrower on that staff. So I thought the Red Sox had a huge advantage, both because of the momentum they were riding and no Carpenter for the Cardinals. And the Red Sox at that point they crushed softball guys, like guys who threw breaking stuff. I think it was Woody Williams and Jeff Suppan and trying to remember the other. Matt Morris. There was they didn't have like a dude that you were like, oh my. So even though they had won 105 games that season, The Red Sox had, they had Pedro, they had Schilling, they had Derek Lowe, who had suddenly caught fire. They had the great story of Tim Wakefield being able to start Game 1 of the World Series, which he was supposed to do the year before, in 2003, if only he hadn't been needed in relief, and then gave up that walk-off homer to Aaron Boone that we all remembered. So it was just like, you just felt like the Red Sox were flying in that series. You felt like they were on cloud nine, and they couldn't be stopped. And I know hearing in the years after that, Theo Epstein and his scouts, after pouring through the reports in the Cardinals, they told everyone from John Henry to Terry Francona to Kurt Schilling, they said, we're going to crush these guys. I mean, they just, it wasn't like the Yankee series where those teams were just so familiar with each other that, those teams kind of offset each other. They were just so confident. There was just an air of confidence that permeated that whole team. And then, they win that first game. That was the only game that was really close in the late innings. And amazingly, the Red Sox did not trail in that entire World Series. Not a single inning in that World Series did the Cardinals have a lead in any of the games. So it was just, it was amazing to see them finish the season with 8 wins in a row. But maybe, like, when you look at the way the 2004 Red Sox finished that season, they were so hot. I mean, they had won 40 out of 55 to close the regular season after the trades, and the chemistry had gotten better. And they just had that little blip in the first 3 games against the Yankees, but they swept the Angels in the division series, swept the Cardinals in the World Series. They were a juggernaut at that time. To this day, 23 years during the Red Sox, that team from about mid-August, so it was about a 2-month stretch there from mid-August through the end of October. That's the best team I've seen covering the Red Sox for a stretch.
So, Ian, years later, you're right. Idiots revisited catching up with the Red Sox who won the 2004 World Series. Kind of transitioning into present day, but, from those personalities, the idiots, and, years later, Millar, it wasn't even years later, it was days after, Millar's telling stories about how they got ready, in 2004, much to the chagrin of Terry Francona, who, had to kind of sort of put out another fire. But as you were writing the book and as you were going back and talking to guys, who maybe had for you the greatest appreciation of what they accomplished?
God, it's hard to say. I think really, I think Derek Lowe was probably the most well-spoken on just the whole thing because of his personal journey that season of going from a guy who was highly thought of when the year started, turning down a contract extension, to just getting in his own head about it. And, he had a bad 2004 season, and he was taken out of the rotation at the start of the playoffs. He told me some stories about how he almost left the team when they told him in Baltimore the final weekend of the season that he wasn't going to be in the rotation. He talked about leaving the team entirely, and Jason Varitek and Tim Wakefield gave him a talking to, and they were the 2 guys who convinced him to stick there. And then for him to pinch all 3 clinching games in that playoffs, for Derek Lowe to be the guy on the mound in Game 4 against the Yankees when they were down 3 games to nothing, nobody expecting anything of him at the time, and him keeping them in that game and giving them the chance to pull off the comeback. For Derek Lowe to come back on 2 days rest against the Yankees in Game 7, a story that still doesn't get as much play as it should. And for Derek Lowe to be the one who was clinching the final game, pinching the final game of the World Series and pitching a great game, 7 shutout innings. And he really had an appreciation because, he knew his Red Sox career was coming to an end. There were just some rumblings that they didn't look at him as a long-term fit. I think they were worried, that he had a little too much fun off the field. I think a lot of guys on that team did, but they especially heard that with him. So I think, looking back, it wound up being a mistake that they didn't bring him back, because he wound up to just have a really fabulous career. And the other guy, just with the deep appreciation, was Pedro Martinez, because he was brought in 1998 really to put the Red Sox back on top again. Pedro and Nomar were supposed to be the 2 guys who were going to do that. By the time they got there, Nomar wasn't around anymore. He had been traded in July. So Pedro was kind of that one link, the one superstar who had been trying to get them over that hurdle for years. So once they got that championship, he just was able to breathe a sigh of relief for the first time in years. As he said, kind of mission accomplished. His own situation was in limbo. He was going into free agency, but he was able to be at peace going into free agency because he had finally helped bring the championship to Boston, and that was all he ever really set out to do. So I would say, if you ask for the one guy who had the most appreciation, probably Pedro, the guy who had the most interesting personal arc through the season, Derek Lowe. But there was just a lot of great stories on that team.
So as you've 2004, break the curse, 4 World Series titles, in an amazing period of time for the Red Sox organization. Fast forward to present day, have you seen in the last couple of years, even with this 2024 team, were there any traits that you sort of said, okay, it might be a reach here, but just in terms of, there's something with this team, perhaps if they do make it to October and make a run, that there were some similarities to those 4 World Series championship teams?
Yeah, not this team really, not the last few
Yeah.
years. Really. I mean, what the Red Sox need right now, and this makes it crystal clear, is they need some more. They need like a Justin Turner type from last year. If he had been on this year's team, I thought that would have helped a lot. They were really missing that one really veteran voice to sort of lead the team, and Rafael Devers just isn't that guy. He's never going to be that guy. Trevor Story was again out for most of the season, so it was hard for him to be that guy. So they put a lot of the leadership on Jarren Duran, which is fine, but he's a relatively young guy with no playoff experience who's still kind of learning how to go through these journeys of a full season. So I would say they had a couple guys in the bullpen, Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin, sort of been there, done that. They lent a lot of experience in that regard. But yeah, just they need some more guys with postseason experience. It really does matter. You have to have a couple of guys who can really hold down the clubhouse. So I didn't, I think that's where you didn't have the similarity. This team this year, this is probably the youngest team I ever covered. So it's different covering a young team. You see a lot of ups and downs. You saw like some weeks where they were just great. Some weeks where they just couldn't hit the ball out of the infield. Some weeks they couldn't pitch. So it's just kind of, a little disjointed in that sense. But no, the team I saw probably most similar to the 04 team would probably be the 13 team, just because of the mentality of the guys in the clubhouse. It was not necessarily look at the team on paper and say this team is a wagon, but they got everything. They got everything out of that team that they could, in large part because of not just the talent, but the team chemistry. And you really do need that on a team.
Ian, a couple more for you, and we'll wrap up. And appreciate you taking the time with us here on Locked On Red Sox. From this team standpoint, has there been anything in this postseason where you thought, man, if they had just gotten in, they could have won this series? They could have won the first round and made it to the divisional round, or maybe even beyond that. Because as we see, you never know once those teams, and I hate calling it, but now it's a tournament, and you just never know. It's just a matter of getting in.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they could have got in because they just needed to hit down the stretch, which they didn't do at all. I mean, you had two teams who kind of completely collapsed with Kansas City and Minnesota. And those teams kind of single-handedly kept the Red Sox going until they didn't get eliminated until there were 3 games left in the season. But to tell you the truth, I didn't see a team that was going to go, a Red Sox team that was going to make a run for a couple reasons. The first was the bullpen. You look at all these teams that are in the playoffs, Steve, and they all have a bunch of guys who are just coming in throwing 98, 99 miles an hour. And you're seeing these games, the starters are only going 5 innings. And the Red Sox, they just didn't have that line of that succession of guys in the bullpen who would just throw lights out. And the other thing is you need sort of a Garrett Cole. You need like some of these guys that the other teams have, even like a Yamamoto or some of these guys who could just be that guy. Be the guy on a team. And Cleveland even had it a little bit with Tanner Bybee, but the Red Sox, Tanner Houck was wearing down the stretch, and Cutter Crawford was wearing down the stretch, and Pivetta was really the one veteran guy they had. Bay was sort of inconsistent, so I just don't think they had the pitching to tell you the truth where they could have made any kind of tangible run. Could they have gotten lucky and won 2 out of 3 in a wild card series on the road? Sure, anybody can get hot and win in a wild card series. But do I think they had enough to win a division series this year? No. I think that the roster needs some serious tweaks. They need continued growth from the young players who took steps this year. But no, I didn't think this year's team would have gone very far in the playoffs.
Ian, put the last one sort of together for you. once World Series is over. Tyler O'Neill get a qualifying offer in your view? And have you heard anything about, the possibility of, replacing some of the coaches they've parted ways with here?
Yeah, Tyler O'Neill, I would definitely give him a qualifying offer. I mean, generally speaking, a Scott Boras client there is not going to take that offer, especially since he had a pretty good season in the amount of at-bats he played. But why not give it to him? Because then you get the draft pick if he leaves.
Right.
And if you get stuck, if he does accept it, you get stuck paying Tyler O'Neill $20 million or whatever the qualifying offer is. Not that huge a deal.
Big raise for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As for the coaches, not really. It's hard to know at this time of year because you don't really know which coaches are under contract, which coaches aren't. One interesting one for me is would this be the time that Alex Cora tries to bring his brother Joey over to try to help improve the infield? Because Joey's expertise is infield defense, and he's also a really good third base coach. They have Kyle Hudson is staying on the staff. There could be a scenario of Joey coming in and Kyle moving back to first, or even Joey coaching first. But I think that this is a guy who knows how to, coach infielders. And that's one thing the Red Sox have struggled so much with the last 2 years. So that's one name that kind of intrigues me. Whether it's realistic, I'm really not sure. The Tigers just got off their run, having a very good run. But aside from that, just got to wait and see. Craig Breslow might have some ideas of guys that are on his list. You don't really know who the candidates are at this point. But that's some things that they'll figure out in the coming weeks.
Ian, I will thank Tim McMaster, also formerly of MLB Advanced Media, for putting us together. You can tell him, don't ever send that guy my number again later this afternoon. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I really do appreciate taking a couple of minutes with us, and do this again for filling in for Gabby. Maybe I can hit you up again in the future, but thanks so much for taking the time with us.
Sounds great, Steve. That was a lot of fun.
Ian Browne from MLB.com joining us here on Locked On Red Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Ian, terrific job covering the Red Sox. And when we covered the Red Sox with the Locked On Red Sox postcast feed during the regular season, I do get my tongue tied there every once in a while. Ian was a guy that I would, read the stories, read the game stories, read his different stuff on RedSox.com, and also give him the credit as well. He's terrific and long tenured with the Red Sox organization as well. So we do thank Ian. A little Red Sox history and a couple of more thoughts. I know Tyler O'Neill is one of two. We didn't bring up Nick Pivetta because I don't think Ian or I believe that Pivetta is going to get the qualifying offer from the Red Sox, and I'll discuss that a little bit more coming up next. Locked On Red Sox podcast presented by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big run on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a bunch in the middle of the game, when you get a hunch, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play action, and so much more on the same page where you do place your bets. You'll get started with a $200 from FanDuel and bonus bets. That is guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, a thank you, a great big thank you to our sponsors here on this Monday, both FanDuel and Prize Picks as well. So, yes, filling in for Gabby on the Locked On Red Sox podcast, Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel as well over the next 10 shows. Show number 1, just about in the books. Again, we do thank Ian Browne from MLB.com for joining us. We do want your audience participation throughout the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about the guys in the Arizona Fall League. Still trying to maybe get one of those guys in the Arizona Fall League in the coming days or even next week as well. Wednesday, we're going to talk with Michael Lynch. Michael is a dear friend. He's been part of the Negro Leagues database. You can find that on seamheads.com. We're going to sort of chronicle and go back and look at the box score from August 23, 2004, and Game 1 of the World Series. We're going to do that with Michael. So if you're with us on the podcast, you can hit me up on the X at Lennox on Baseball and share your thoughts with us as to your memories from 2004. Because, again, October 21, 2004, the day after Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. Off day today, off day tomorrow, and then it was games 1 and 2 at Fenway Park, October 23rd and October 24th, and then it was on to St. Louis to win games 3 and 4, and the first World Series title for the Red Sox organization since in 86 years. So again, join us. Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel over the coming days. Gabby's going to be back in early November as she is celebrating being married. And if you do follow Gabby on the X, send her a note, say congratulations on being a newlywed. And I'm sure her and her new husband are going to enjoy that along the way as well. So we're going to be live. Gabby usually launches first thing in the morning. We do appreciate you having Locked On Red Sox as your first listen every day. We appreciate our everydayers as well, part of Locked On Red Sox Network and Locked On Sports Network as well. But we're going to go 12:30 live on the YouTube, Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel throughout this week. It might be a little early or next week as we line up live guests along the way. Our thanks again to Ian Browne. Back at it Tuesday, Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and the Locked On Red Sox podcast feed. That is a wrap for us. Remember, your next listen, check out Locked On MLB and the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Red Sox, your team every day.